are you? My name is Sarah from Sarah's Reading Nook, and I'm happy that you're here today. Today I'm going to be doing my February 2020 reading wrap-up. I'm happy to say that I read more books than I did in January. Now, in the month of February, I read 7 books. The first 2 books were written by author Nikita Gill, and they were both poetry books. Now, honestly, I love these 2 books, and I gave them both 4 stars. The first is called Great Goddesses, Life Lessons from Myths and Monsters. This book in particular is a very good one to read if you're having like a difficult time and are trying to find confidence of yourself and of your abilities. These are very empowering poems, and I love them so much. And the second book that I read by Nikita Gill is called Fierce Fairytales, Poems and Stories to Stir Your Soul. So this one I also enjoyed quite a bit, but I did enjoy the Greek Goddesses just a little bit more. One of my favorite things to do is to read retellings of fairy tales. So I don't know if you've heard about a book called The Brothers Grimm, but it is a book of fairy tales, and it was written long ago by the Brothers Grimm. And in that collection, there are fairy tales about Cinderella, Rapunzel, Snow White, for instance, just all of the fairy tales that we know and love today. However, the original story is much darker than what we were shown by Disney. And Nikita Gill, when she does her poetry, how she writes her poetry is based off of those original tales. One of my favorite booktubers is Jen Campbell, and on her YouTube account, she goes over so many different origins of fairy tales, and I think that it does feel like really interesting investigative work to look back and to see what exactly was the origin of Snow White. What was the origin of Rapunzel? I think of Ursula differently. I don't just think of her as this awful, terrible witch. There's a very good poem in Nikita Gill's work that goes over Ursula and various female villains that we've seen, and it challenges your perspective of what you think a villain is versus how Nikita Gill imagined the perspective being told from that villain. So those 2 poetry books I loved so much, and I gave them both 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Love and Gelato, written by Jenna Welch. So February is an interesting reading month. There's so many readers on booktube and on bookstagram that kind of gravitate to romance and love stories, and I don't necessarily find them the most interesting, if I can be totally honest with you. Many of them seem like a variation of the exact same story, just written with slightly different characters. However, I feel like this book was kind of special in the sense that it wasn't just a story about 2 people falling for each other or 2 people falling in love. It was a story of sort of revelation and mystery and sort of uncovering what the main character's past was. And also the author provided the protagonist with a situation that would be incredibly difficult to handle given the circumstances. Initially, when I read the first few chapters, I thought to myself, why isn't this character loving Italy? I've been to Italy. Italy is so wonderful. It's a beautiful country. There are so many things to see, so many things to do, and how can you not fall in love with it? But I had to sort of keep reminding myself, the protagonist has just lost her mother, and she's been sent to live in a foreign country completely against her free will. So of course she's not going to fall in love with Italy, at least not at first, and that would be a ridiculous thing to ask of someone. The farther the book goes, the more the character starts to find herself again and learns to adapt in her situation. And what I love about this book is that while all of these challenges are facing the main character, you stay connected to that story. And I feel like the relationship sort of complements everything that she's going through. So because of that, I really love the book. I gave the book 4 stars, and now I am so dying to go back to Europe, but that will be soon in June, and I'm so excited about that. And now the next book is a book that I really doubt many people have heard on here, but it's such a good thing to read about. And first of all, can we just appreciate how absolutely beautiful this cover is? So a couple of words about Alicia Elliott. She's from North America, and she also is First Nations. And I'm just going to read the caption off of here. Alicia Elliott offers indispensable insight into the ongoing legacy of colonialism. She engages with such wide-ranging topics as race, parenthood, love, mental illness, poverty, sexual assault, gentrification, writing, and representation, and in the process makes connections both large and small between the past and present, the personal and political. The book is nonfiction, and I think that it's really important to try to look into nonfiction. I gave the book 5 stars, and I highly recommend that you read it. And if you do so, please let me know below what you thought about the book. Then I read another nonfiction book. The book was written by Shirley Jackson, and it was called The Witchcraft of Salem Village. I love reading about the witch trials. It was such a crazy time in history, and it's so crazy to me that so many people were executed and convicted and charged with witchcraft. So basically this book talks about that crazy time. It discusses the girls that were in Salem Village and basically how they outed Tituba for witchcraft. And then the whole thing just kind of spiraled on from there. I don't quite understand still, even after reading this, how it happened. But it resulted in so many deaths. I think I keep reading about this time period because I want a better understanding of how the Salem witch trials could have happened. But the more I read, the more questions I have. So I think that in the future, this won't be the only book that I read about the Salem witch trials this year. If you have recommendations, please put them down below because I would love to hear them. And I'm not really sure what to rate this book yet. It was very short, it was good, but I wish that there was more content. Okay, and the next book is Strange Planet by Nathan W. Pyle. I'm sure that you've seen these comics being circulated throughout Instagram and through other social media platforms. The entire concept of these comics is sort of looking at everyday human life and sort of looking at it through the lens of an alien. It's interesting because if you just stop and think of, why do we do what we do? Why do humans interact the way that we do with other people? Why do we interact that way with cats, dogs, everything? To have a really good appreciation for this, you'd have to look at the comics, but they are hilarious. And I'm sure that there will be some sort of comics that you find within this collection that you can relate to, or that you've thought, hey, isn't it so weird that humans do this or that? It's such a fun book to read, and I love how the aliens are illustrated. So I gave the book 4 stars. Again, I just wish that it had more in it because it was so good. But it was a very good collection and I loved it. And now the last book that I read is by A.A. Milne, and the illustrations are done by Ernest H. Shepard, and the book is called When We Were Very Young, Winnie the Pooh #3. I've had a few conversations with Kristen from Kristen and Her Books about just how magical Winnie the Pooh is, and I think that that magic really comes from the writer and his amazing imagination. So that writer is A.A. Milne, and the illustrator is so talented and has my favorite depictions of what Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore, what they look like. I know that there is a cartoon version that we see, but the illustrations that you see in the original Winnie the Pooh books, there's nothing that compares to just how beautiful they are. They're so simple, and I think that is a common theme throughout the Winnie the Pooh series. I like to read books from my childhood every so often, and actually I'm going to be participating in middle grade March, so I'm going to be reading a lot of childhood favorites that I've read, so different classics. The Winnie the Pooh books were some of my favorite books. By the way, Olivia just came by. Say hi. They are some of my favorite books from my childhood, and I love to reread them every so often, but I don't think that I've read the Winnie the Pooh books since high school, so I'm going to read the 2 others sometime soon. I gave the book 4 stars, just because this is a book of poems, but I'm sure that once I read the classic Winnie the Pooh books with Winnie the Pooh in them, and his friends, that I'm going to give them 5 stars, I'm sure. So thank you for watching. I have been feeling ill all weekend, but I really wanted to post a video for you guys this week, so I did. If you like this video, please give it a like, and also don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. I hope that you have a great rest of the weekend and a great week ahead of you. Bye!